Welcome back once again, all of my low carb friends, and for those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. Today I have two super easy coconut flour tortilla recipes for you guys. The first one is for soft coconut flour tortillas. The second one is for crispy coconut flour taco shells. Now, if you've ever worked with coconut flour, you probably know that it generally uses a whole lot of eggs in order to help bind the ingredients all together and to give it the texture and the moisture that it needs. However, when you make coconut flour tortillas, if you add too many eggs to them, it makes them taste more like an omelet than a tortilla. So today, our coconut flour tortilla recipes contain no eggs. And they only contain 3 main ingredients. They are super simple. And if you want printable versions of these, you can check out my website at janetsdeliciouslowcarbkitchen.com. You can find printable versions of these and other goodies there for you. And if you're new to the channel and you want to learn how to make lots of easy low-carb keto recipes, make sure you click that subscribe button and click the notification bell that's right next to the subscribe button. That way you could be notified every time I put out a new video on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And if you'd like to help support the channel, make sure you scroll down into the description of the video. You'll see some Amazon affiliate links. Anytime you purchase anything using those Amazon affiliate links, a small portion of your purchase will go to me and will help to support the channel. So, anytime you want to buy anything on Amazon, make sure you use my affiliate link, and a small portion of whatever you purchase will go to help and support the channel. And while you do all that, let's get cooking. In a medium mixing bowl, combine a half cup of coconut flour, 2 tablespoons of psyllium husk powder, a half teaspoon of salt, a half teaspoon of garlic powder, and a half teaspoon of onion powder. Sift or whisk these all together until they're fully combined and there are no lumps in the dry ingredients. Now the salt and the garlic powder and onion powder, they're optional. I like flavor in my tortillas, so I add the salt and garlic powder and onion powder to give it some more flavor. But if you just want more of a neutral flavor tortilla, you can leave those out. Add 1 tablespoon of the oil of your choice. I'm using avocado oil. You can use any oil you want. And 1 cup of warm water. Make sure it's warm water. That helps everything to bind a lot more smooth. So make sure the water is warm. It doesn't have to be hot, just warm. Whisk these all together until they're fully combined and you have a smooth dough. Push the dough all together into the center of the bowl and press the dough into a firm ball. Massage the dough in your hands for about 1 to 2 minutes or until the dough is completely smooth and slightly moist. You want your dough just to be lightly moist. You don't want it to stick to your hands. So if it is too moist and it is sticking to your hands, then just add a small amount more of the psyllium husk powder and massage it in for 20-30 seconds until the dough is not sticking to your hands anymore. Once it's all massaged, press the dough back into a ball and allow it to sit uncovered at room temperature for about 10 minutes, just so the psyllium husk and the coconut flour can absorb any extra moisture and can start binding together really well. You want your ingredients to be set together very well so your tortillas don't fall apart. While the dough is setting for the 10 minutes, preheat an 8 or 10-inch skillet over medium heat. The size of skillet depends on what size of tortilla you want. If you want an 8-inch tortilla, then use an 8-inch skillet. If you're wanting a 10-inch tortilla, use a 10-inch skillet. I'm doing a 10-inch. Just allow it to preheat over medium heat just until it's warm. Once the dough has set for the 10 minutes, divide it into portions, anywhere from 2 portions to up to 8 portions, depending on how big and how thick you're wanting your tortillas. If you're doing 10-inch tortillas, it makes around 2 to 3 10-inch tortillas, depending on how thick you want them. If you're doing 8-inch tortillas, it makes around 6 to 8 8-inch tortillas, again, depending on how thick you want them. I'm doing 10-inch tortillas, so I'm just dividing it into 2 portions. I make my tortillas a little bit on the thicker side, so if you make them really thin, you might be able to get 3 10-inch tortillas out of this. Line a clean work surface with parchment paper. Then what I like to do is draw a 8-inch or 10-inch circle in the center of my parchment paper. You don't have to do this. This just gives me a guide as to how big I'm wanting to press or roll out my dough. Take one portion of your dough and place it in the center of your parchment paper, or if you're like me and drew a circle, in the center of your circle. Then press or roll the dough evenly out to either an 8-inch or 10-inch circle. If you're using a rolling pin, then you'll want to place another parchment paper over the dough before you try to roll it out. Otherwise, your rolling pin will stick to the dough because the dough is a moist dough. So make sure you cover it with parchment paper before you use a rolling pin. Or you can just press it out with your hands if you don't have a rolling pin, or if you prefer to press it rather than roll it. That is up to you. Once the dough is all pressed out, lightly spray your preheated skillet. Then lift the parchment paper with the pressed out dough over towards where your skillet is, and carefully peel the dough circle off of the parchment paper and place it in your preheated skillet. Cook it for about 2 to 3 minutes. If you've made your tortillas more on the thin side, then 2 minutes. If you're like me and made your tortillas a little bit thicker, then it'll be closer to 3 minutes. You know it's done cooking on the one side when it can lift easily from the skillet. Then use a spatula or a pancake turner and carefully turn the tortilla over and cook for another 1 to 2 minutes on the other side, or until it's golden on both sides and easily releases from the skillet. Once it's cooked on both sides, carefully remove the tortilla from the skillet and place it on a plate and allow it to cool completely before using it. While it's cooling, lightly spray your skillet again and continue to cook the remaining tortillas, making sure that you spray the skillet before cooking each tortilla. Once the tortillas are cooled, you can use them for wraps or whatever recipe calls for soft tortillas. If you have any leftovers, store them in an airtight container or a large Ziploc bag in the refrigerator for up to 5 days. Preheat your oven to 375 degrees. Cut 6 to 8 pieces of foil into strips that are about 8 by 8 inches in size. How many you're going to need depends on how big you're making your taco shells. Roll each foil strip into a loose tube shape. I usually just roll the foil around a thick marker and then I slide the marker out, and that's my tube shape right there. This is going to help keep the shape of your taco shell. Set the foil tubes aside for a minute. Line 2 large baking sheets with parchment paper. Pour about 2 tablespoons of oil in each baking sheet and use a silicone brush to spread the oil evenly throughout the baking sheet. Set those aside for a minute. In a medium mixing bowl, combine 1 cup of coconut flour, 2 tablespoons of xanthan gum, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, and a half teaspoon of black pepper. Sift or whisk these together until they're fully combined and there are no lumps in the dry ingredients. Now again, for this recipe, the salt, the garlic powder, and the onion powder and the pepper are all optional. They just give the taco shell some flavor. You know me, I'm all about flavor, so I like to add a little bit of flavoring to my taco shells. Gradually add about 1 cup of hot water into your dry ingredients. You do want to make sure the water is hot. This helps your dough to be more smooth, which helps for a more smooth tortilla. Stir the hot water into the dry ingredients until it's fully combined and all of the dry ingredients are moist. Push the dough together into the center of the bowl and form the dough into a firm ball. Massage the dough in your hands for about 10 to 15 seconds just to make sure that everything is fully combined and sticking together well. Then reshape it back into a ball and allow it to rest for about 5 minutes. Divide the dough into 6 to 8 portions depending on how big you're wanting your taco shells. Line a clean work surface with parchment paper. In the center of the parchment paper, draw an 8 to 10 inch circle. Again, this is just for a guide. I just do this just for a guide for me to help me visually see how big I want to press my dough out to. Place one dough portion into the center of your parchment paper, or if you've drawn a circle, in the center of the circle. Then press or roll out the dough portion to an 8 to 10 inch circle. Mine's closer to 10 inches. I like my taco shells to be big enough to put a lot of stuff in them. Then transfer the dough circles to your prepared baking sheets. Make sure when you put them on the baking sheet that you space them out just a little bit. They don't spread or anything, but you do want to have some airflow. That's what helps the tortillas to become crispy. Place it in your preheated oven and bake at 375 degrees for about 10 minutes. Carefully turn the tortillas over, then place the foil tube in the center of each tortilla and very carefully fold the tortilla loosely over the tube. Be very careful. The baking sheet is hot and the tortillas are hot, so be very careful when you are folding these. Also, they are going to be fragile because they are warm, so carefully fold them over. Then bake another 5 to 10 minutes or until the taco shell is brown and beginning to get crispy. It's not going to be fully crunchy yet. Remove it from the oven. Again, it's not going to be fully crunchy yet, but it will crisp up as it cools. So allow it to cool on the pan for about 10 minutes or until it is crunchy like a chip. If after 10 minutes it's not crunchy like a chip, you can pop it back into the oven at that 375 degrees for 5 more minutes. Then allow it to cool for another 10 minutes and check again and see if it's crunchy like a chip. And keep doing that until it is crunchy like a chip. Once the taco shells are all cooked and they've cooled on your baking sheet for at least 10 minutes, carefully remove the foil tube and allow the shells to cool on the pan completely before using them. Make sure they are cooled completely. You don't want your tortilla falling apart, so you want to make sure it gets nice and cool. Once it is cooled, you can fill the shells up with whatever filling you want. If you do have any leftovers, store them in a large Ziploc bag or an airtight container at room temperature for up to 3 days. And those are our recipes of the day. I hope you enjoyed them. If you did and you want to see more videos like this, make sure you click that thumbs up like button, click that subscribe button, leave me a comment if you want to. Let me know if there's any recipes that you'd like to learn how to make, and I'll do what I can to get those out there for you. And as always, keep cooking.